There are bad omens for Australia's housing boom, with dire predictions for the powerhouse markets in Sydney and Melbourne and hard times already hitting regional areas. It's against that backdrop that Westpac has now raised interest rates. The other big banks are tipped to follow suit, and given Australia's massive household debt, that could spell trouble ahead. Connor Duffy reports.
The main selling points of the house are the amazing view. We have a great view of the bay.
Kim Russell may have picked the perfect time to sell. She's just listed this house south of Melbourne, and forecasters are predicting a red-hot market is close to its peak.
The cost of money is so cheap at the moment that it's the perfect time for people to be buying. Just doesn't feel like anything's coming off the boil at the moment.
Half a decade of explosive growth has transformed Sydney and Melbourne into some of the world's most expensive cities.
1,520,000 to those other interested parties.
Sellers have been laughing, but it's meant that the debt incurred by buyers has become ever more onerous.
Australians have been playing this Ponzi game of housing where I buy a house and the value goes up, and what happens is then I make money by selling it to somebody else. And the whole game depends on the buyer always being able to borrow ever larger sums of money. And that all depends on incomes and employment. And that side of the economy, the real economy, is looking extremely weak.
Real estate agents like Robert Simeon aren't supposed to talk down the market. But even he's worried about the correction that's coming.
More particularly Melbourne and Sydney, where they've been sitting at 20% median increases year on year. That's a market that we haven't seen for a long, long time.
The 30-year real estate veteran believes some outer suburbs will be smashed.
Whenever you've had rapid price growth, there's inevitable there's going to be a correction. That's just the way it is. I mean, the markets always sort themselves out and find a new plateau. Some markets won't be touched, other markets it'll be quite horrendous.
You've done your homework, you know what it's worth to you.
In the cities, falling prices would create new opportunities for those looking to buy, and even the Reserve Bank has been concerned about high prices. In some regional cities like Townsville, that correction is well underway.
Townsville markets is suffering. A lot of those regional markets, particularly the ones that have been exposed at various levels to resource sector investment, are now feeling the impact of that downturn in investment.
David Moyle owns a house and a townhouse. He can't sell either because they're now worth less than the mortgage.
If the interest rates were to go up significantly, yes, a lot of families will go under. I've allowed myself 4 years to ride it out. And if I can't, I say if the property market doesn't increase or get better in the next 4 years, then for me the harsh reality is I'll take a sizable loss and I'll have to start again.
The one-time rapid growth and lifestyle lured him to invest. He never saw the downside coming.
I would be lying if I'm not sitting back at night time kind of wondering what the future holds. As I said, you know, if I was 20 years younger, I said, well, I probably said, well, I've got 20 years to work it off. I'm now turning close to 50.
It's against this backdrop that Westpac united the winners and the losers of the property market in outrage. Despite posting an $8 billion profit, the banks raised interest rates by 20 basis points. 1/4 of all residential mortgages are with Westpac.
It's going to put tremendous strain on a lot of households, and it eventually will be the death knell for a lot of families in Townsville.
It even united politicians who lined up to kick the bank.
I don't support what Westpac's done in the slightest. I don't think the case has been made to increase its fees and rates. I think it's an incredibly disappointing decision.
But the other banks are tipped to follow suit, and it's led to speculation the Reserve Bank could cut rates in November.
People are suggesting that if the banks were to increase their variable rate, then the RBA should do a commensurate cut in its cash rate to cause the variable rate to come back to where it was previously.
Leading financial analyst Satyajit Das fears the banks don't have much room to move.
Something like over 50, and probably a higher percentage than even that, of banks' loans are somehow tied to housing. And the problem is, if these loans are not paid, then the banking system will have some financial difficulties. And this will percolate very quickly in two ways. One is the supply of credit in the economy will tighten, and also the cost of that credit will go up.
At 1 million, look for the 25, bit of rise if you like.
He worries falling house prices will be exacerbated by an economy that needs to be transformed.
Go on, congratulations, sir, well done.
We are basically dependent on international lenders financing us. And given problems elsewhere in the world which are now building up, Australia is extremely vulnerable.